It's not that there was much that was inherently wrong with the last-gen Mercedes GLC-Class, but after about 8 years on the market, it was time for a change. And in classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it style, most of what made that last version good carries over here. Hell, they don't even look that different from across a parking lot. But it's once you peel back that familiar sheet metal that you get a sense of what elevates this SUV from good to great. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Okay, look, this thing looks a lot like the last gen GLC class. I bet some owners out there might not even be able to tell them apart. Dimensionally, a few different specs here and there, so it's actually an inch lower. The roof line is about an inch lower, but the wheelbase is identical. Bumper to bumper, a little bit longer, but interior dimensions pretty much identical to before. A little less headroom, but shoulder room and leg room about the same. I think there's more than enough space. I'd say there's more than enough space for a family of 4 in here. There's also 70 more liters of cargo room behind the back seats, and those do still fold in a 40-20-40 split, which I absolutely love. It means you can still have 4 full-size seats inside, but you can stash long items up the middle. I don't know if you like skiing, stuff like that. It is a very handy feature, one that is vastly underutilized, and I'm happy to see that Mercedes is still carrying that torch. Now, the nice thing about this configuration, it means you don't have to step up to the GLE class that starts at about 12 grand more than this here in Canada. Now, this one starts right around 59 grand, which is more than a BMW X3 or an Audi Q5, but I still think it's fairly reasonable. This one I'm driving has about $15,000 worth of options, including this panoramic sunroof. Well, you know you're gonna have to pay extra. This is a premium brand, but it still seems pretty reasonable. Although there is one major disappointment for me here, that this thing's about 74 grand before freight and tax, and it has almost no advanced safety features. There's blind spot monitoring, a couple other things, but there's no adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, all of that stuff. It's part of an advanced driver assist package that has not been added to this tester, and that is hugely disappointing to me, especially because most mainstream models this size include most, if not all, advanced safety features in every single trim. So that Mercedes is still charging more is a big issue, at least for me. But on the bright side, Mercedes stopped charging extra for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto like it did before. That is included in the starting price. It's also a way better implementation this year because the widescreen from before, that is gone, and thank God for that, especially considering the way both of those phone projection systems were squeezed. You had these black bars on either side. It was really awkward, really awful. This fills up almost the entire screen. Now it's 11.9 inches. Technically it's portrait oriented, but because you have these permanent climate controls running along the bottom, kind of fills out this square, but it's really good. And this screen is super responsive to inputs. I really like it. The rest of the layout is okay. Most of the controls really simplified. Still use these thumb sensors on the steering wheel. That's how you control this screen, as well as the display in front of the driver. There's also this volume control. You got to slide with your thumb. Very finicky. There's another one underneath the screen, but the cool thing is you can tap that one to turn the volume up or down instead of trying to slide your finger to find the right spot. But this one on the steering wheel, you have no choice but to slide your thumb on it. I don't like it, but overall, I'd say this thing is fairly straightforward. Again, it's been simplified, and that part is really important. That's the big change you are going to notice in here. The other big one is the powertrain. Now, I know there was a GLC 200 in other parts of the world that had a mild hybrid system, but this is the first time we're getting it in North America. So it uses pretty much the same 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder as before, but it adds a 48-volt electrical system. It is a mild hybrid. It cannot run on battery alone except for when coasting, but I will tell you, it does that an awful lot. This might be the most noticeable mild hybrid system I have ever experienced. Not that you can hear it or even feel it working, but I can see this tach needle constantly dropping to zero every time I let my foot off the throttle. Now, I'm sure I don't have to spell out to you guys what that means. It's fuel savings. With the engine shut off when you're coasting, that means it's not burning gas. That's how I've been averaging less than 8 liters per 100 kilometers this week. That is so very impressive. That is easily one of the lowest consumption rates I have ever had in an SUV this size. This thing is all-wheel drive. Most of them are right around 10 liters per 100 kilometers, unless you're talking about a full-fledged hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. So I really like what I'm seeing here. I also like that you can see here in the display what's happening, how many kilometers you've coasted for, as well as how many minutes the engine has been shut off for. So I can look here and see that over the 6 hours and 28 minutes of drive time, an hour and 2 minutes, the engine has been off. Yes, that includes time idling at red lights, but that is awesome. Less emissions, less fuel burn. It also kind of offsets the fact that this still runs on premium grade gas. That stuff is expensive, but this is going to cut that fuel bill at least a little bit. I also love how smooth this entire drivetrain is. I'm not just talking about the way this ignition stop-start system works, but just generally. If you're cruising around casually, you'll barely even notice the transmission shifting. This thing is almost EV-like in its smoothness. It's also super quiet outside of highway speeds. Anything below about 80 kilometers an hour, it's nice and serene. It really does make this thing feel as luxurious as Mercedes was hoping, and I'm sure you would be hoping too if you are shelling out about 74 grand for this one I'm driving. But like I said, it's just nice and buttery. There's also no air suspension, but it's super smooth. Yeah, you can feel the wheels and tires pulling at the suspension over potholes and broken pavement just a little bit, but I like that this thing doesn't feel as rigid as before. That was a little unbecoming of a luxury vehicle. I also like the driving dynamics. No, it is not sporty, but it's got that kind of Mercedes quality to it. You kind of feel it, and when you get your foot into it, as efficient as this thing is, 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, more than enough. The mild hybrid system means that it'll chip in with something like, I don't know, 130 more pound-feet temporarily when you need it, when you're accelerating. And then, of course, it will run the accessories as well. It really is the best of both worlds because you never have to think about it, but it's always doing its thing. To recap, I like the 2023 Mercedes GLC 300 silky drivetrain, incredible efficiency, and impressive ride quality. I don't like the finicky touch sensors on the steering wheel or that the advanced safety features are optional, but that's about it. Look, I know everybody loves a good underdog story, but I'm telling you right now, there is no way I could buy a Genesis GV70 knowing that this new GLC class is on the market. And I'm not just here to dunk on Genesis, because the same is true of the BMW X3, the Audi Q5, or any other premium SUV this size. Yes, I wish all the advanced safety features were included in the asking price, and I'm still not so crazy about those touch sensors, but it's all pretty forgivable considering how well this thing comes together overall.